And we are live. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Doki podcast. My name is Brian Sudol, and to the left of me,
I'm Sean Emmerich.
and both of us are English teachers here in Japan, in Aomori Prefecture. And we thought it would be a nice idea to, after seeing some inspiration from the various Godzilla groups on Facebook and what have you, to add our 2 cents to the measure. So, basically, what the rundown for this episode is going to be is self-introductions, Jiko Shokai in Japanese, if you will. And I've done a little bit of talking so far, but I'll like to toss it over to Sean and let him introduce himself.
Okay, sure. So, I'm Sean, like we said before, but I'm from Pennsylvania originally, and I teach English in Japan. So that's my general introduction.
Okay, and I'm from the very far off land from him in New Jersey. But
so far away.
So but anyway, though, the first question or first topic we're going to talk about is how we got into Godzilla. And Sean, what was your introduction to the series?
It's so long ago, I don't even remember. I would have to say my parents probably introduced it to me, because I do remember having VHS tapes when I was like a little kid. The first movie, yeah, I know, right? First movie was probably either Godzilla versus Gigan or King Kong versus Godzilla.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was actually
one of those two.
Yeah, King Kong vs. Godzilla was my first movie. I was probably about 4 or 5. It was my cousin, my dad, and me. We were in the living room watching it. And, it's such a good film. Just when you're a little kid, it's one of those films that it's always moving. So it keeps you – that's what got me interested and kept my attention. And I was all over the place as a little kid. So, but what other films in the series do you remember growing up? That left a mark.
Almost the entire Showa series.
Okay.
I do remember most of them. I didn't really get into the original one until I was a little bit older, but as a small kid, I definitely remember those ones, Kong and Gigan, Godzilla vs. Megalon, Mothra versus Godzilla, or Godzilla versus the Thing, or whatever you want to call that one. See what else? Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Okay. Because that's what you were saying is interesting, because with the Showa series is, I think, because we're around the same age, and a lot of people, there's kids that grew up with the Heisei series, and technically we did, but we didn't, because based on where we were located. So, because that's like when I saw the Godzilla movies for the first time, it was King Kong vs. Godzilla, and then I probably saw King of the Monsters, this in passing, like as a casual watch. Then I saw the '98 Godzilla from Blockbuster, but it wasn't really until Godzilla 2000 was in the theaters, and that I really got in, like, it was thrown into the deep end basically, and got into the series, and just devoured every piece of media I could get my hands on, whether it was VHS from the flea market or Blockbuster or what have you. But or that's like, I remember when I first got a DVD player, my folks got me the 5 DVD set of was it King of the Monsters? It was Godzilla vs. Mothra. I think it was Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, or the Ghidorah three-headed monster. Rodan and Godzilla's Revenge. So that was, I just about wore those discs out. But I think it was a few years after that I actually saw the original Godzilla, and it's pretty much from that point it was just like, I need to see all the subtitled versions, because they're just vastly superior. But as a kid though too, I know, just not just seeing the movies, but in terms of collectibles, what was your first piece of Godzilla memorabilia, that like tangible?
My first Godzilla toy, I think, obviously the Trendmasters figures were a big thing, but I think even before that, if I remember, I had the old Imperial Godzilla.
Okay,
that like knockoff looking one. Yeah,
they're made in Hong Kong.
I had that.
But that was what was interesting. You mentioned the Trendmasters, and I think right now there's kind of like that surge of nostalgia amongst like our age group. They're just like trying to get them. And because my first one was, I went to KEB Toys in the mall, and I got it was the 4-inch double pack. It was Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. And the thing that, because my dad bought it for me, but he's looking at it, he's going, this ain't Mechagodzilla. He goes, what is this thing?
Oh, yeah.
Because like we mentioned before, is that we had the Heisei films, but we didn't. And because we didn't get those till after the marketing blitz from in '98 with TriStar, and they finally brought the rest of the series over. Well, eventually brought it over on VHS and home video, because we probably just missed '85 and we missed Biollante,
right?
In regards to when they were first showing. I mean, if you could track them down on VHS, you could see them. But I think walking into an actual video store and seeing new Godzilla films, it was kind of like, what? Like, these exist?
Yeah. Nobody knew those existed. Like you're just saying with the Heisei series, like a lot of us knew because of the Trendmaster figures, but we didn't know that those were real characters from movies or anything. So it's kind of weird.
Definitely. And but in regards to, I guess, the watching Godzilla stuff, I know we mentioned VHS and home video, what was available at the time, but where else did you see movies? I know obviously there weren't movie theaters playing the stuff, but
just on television. That was basically it. You'd have early Sci-Fi Channel would have it in the 90s, and TNT would have it because they had Monster Vision, and sometimes they had this marathon going. It was Godzilla Rama, and it would be I think it was the original Godzilla versus Mothra, Monster Zero, Godzilla's Revenge, and Terror of Mechagodzilla.
I do remember those.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad telling me when he was younger, on was it Thanksgiving? Or was it Thanksgiving or Christmas? I can't remember which one. But they would show the King Kong movies. And I think Turner does that sometimes now, where they show King Kong 33, they show Son of Kong, and Mighty Joe Young. So I think it's always been kind of like those films that draw people to the channel, because they're popular films, and they're always guaranteed to get views.
Yeah, and there's always certain movies that they pair together. Like another one, for some reason, was Rodan and War of the Gargantuas.
That's it. Speaking of the Toho DVD.
I was just going to say, the DVDs even paired the two together.
Pardon me, but speaking of, and these are both just a blast to watch.
Oh yeah, they're both really good. As far as the Toho non-Godzillas go, both of them are some of the best.
Yeah, I think especially the acting in the suits itself for the War of the Gargantua is just, there's just so much more range of motion that they can physically do a lot more than the Godzilla suit. I remember just looking at interviews with Haru Nakajima, and just the struggle that guy went through, like 122 degrees in that suit, and could barely move in it.
Crazy.
And he said his eyes in the Gyra suit, like you can actually see like just the emoting, as it made it so menacing. But let's see what else we got going down here. So, what other kind of tokusatsu or like live Japanese stuff were you into at that time? So, because obviously I think a big focus of this will be Godzilla, but I know there's other fans that want to hear other stuff too.
Yeah, exactly. I never really got into most tokusatsu. So like I never watched Ultraman or any of that stuff. When I was growing up, the first season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was popular with like everybody, because that kind of came off of, it's kind of on the back of the Ninja Turtles craze and everything else.
Definitely.
So then right into Power Rangers. And then aside from Godzilla, I always watched the Gamera movies. Those were on Sci-Fi as well. So it started with the Showa ones, of course. But
yeah, I think until recently, I didn't really seriously sit down and watch those. I know they were on Mystery Science Theater 3000. They did a riff track over one of them. And I know they also did Godzilla vs. Megalon and Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. So those films got really heavy rotation. But I know for me, like before even Godzilla, like I became a monster kid probably when I was 3 because my dad was a huge Universal Monsters fan, still is. Right. And probably saw Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein around that age. And then from there, you know, The Mummy, Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Then after that, I saw King Kong vs. Godzilla. But my dad always had issues of famous monsters of film laying around too. So I always flipped through those. Yeah. Even if I couldn't read all the articles, I mean, just seeing all the pictures from the movies were pretty cool. But when you were watching films back in the day, did you also follow G-Fan magazine?
A little bit. There was a time where I had a subscription to them, and maybe for like a couple of years, and then there was a few that I picked up at like local comic book shops, and you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for me, I didn't discover G-Fan until around the time of Godzilla 2000 because the day I saw Godzilla 2000, my dad and me went to a comic shop, and just from there, they had the G-Fan magazine. Then any back issues I saw at the flea market, I just pick up and start reading. But that was also when I first got heavily involved in collecting with Godzilla, that movie, because that's when I discovered the Bandai movie monster series. Now, I know that's a series you started collecting too, right?
Right, yeah. Mine was actually really funny because I was starting to collect the Trendmasters figures, and I had a few when I was really young, and then later on I decided to start like seriously getting them. And then my dog chewed up the Godzilla figure. I couldn't, for some reason, I couldn't find a Trendmasters Godzilla around, so I looked online, and then I found out about the Bandai Godzilla figures, and I started ordering them. I think it was from some guy in the Midwest somewhere. It was like Extreme Collectibles or something like that. They don't even exist anymore. And that's where I started collecting the movie monster series. And I think my first figures I got like the 90s Godzilla, Orga, Cretaceous Ghidorah, because I didn't even know what that was at the time. Yeah, from Mothra 3. And I was like, that's really cool looking. And a couple other ones. But yeah, I got like 5 or 6 of them at one time. And like my first introduction.
Yeah, my first 2, I got Shodai Goji, so 54 Godzilla. These are the Bandai green tags. And then I also got Space Godzilla. And then pretty much every week, you know, if I did good in school, my mom or my dad would take me to the comic shop, and it's like, all right, pick one out. So then I'd either get like Gigon, or I'd get who else? Anguirus or what have you. Yeah, the Cretaceous Ghidorah was one that stood out on the shelf. I'm like, what is that?
It was like the Trendmasters figures again. It was like, what is this kaiju?
I don't think anything that Bandai ever put out though ever reached the what is this factor as their Baragon or the Varan. It's like they barely represent even what the characters are. I mean, they're interesting takes. I mean, now
the Trendmasters, they're like totally different versions. They're all like pumped up on steroids.
Well, that's like the same thing that Star Wars fans complained about the power of the
Luke
Force.
Skywalker figure.
Yeah, he's like
yeah, it looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah.
Yeah, it just I think the word was that some of the programs was toyetic is the word. Like they're appealing to the eye. It's like it's not just boring. It's just like it sticks out. But
right. Yeah, they're not trying to be movie accurate or anything.
But I guess because they at that point it wasn't until Todd McFarlane, I mean, at least in America anyway, that they really had toys that were collectibles. Because up to that point it was a toy. Then maybe if you wanted a collector's item, you bought a model kit.
Yeah. People collected toys from the 80s, but they weren't designed to be collector's items. Yeah.
Like for that specific, like the Funko stuff or the NECA stuff right now, or
Yeah. Now
what have you.
Yeah, there's tons of companies now, but yeah, I agree.
You swing a stick, hit 10 of them.
Yeah.
But like what kind of stuff are you collecting now? Now I know in Japan we have a lot more stuff available to us, at least easily accessible.
Yeah, right. In Japan, it's a very different situation than back in the States. But right now, I've been collecting the X Plus like defo reels or deforials. I'm not sure exactly the pronunciation, but they're pretty cool. They're like I don't know, like maybe 5-inch figures, somewhere in that range, and they're kind of that chibi deformed look, but not extremely deformed. Like, they're stylized figures, but they're definitely recognizable. And I do have a few over here.
Okay.
So one of my favorite ones that I've gotten recently, might as well just show these now since we're talking about it, is the King Shisaw figure.
Ooh, that's pretty cool.
So, yeah, and this one is like the Rick figure or whatever. So it's like an online exclusives.
I think one of the people in the Godzilla collectors group posted this. Now, do the ears move?
The ears, they don't move, but they're like interchangeable. They swap out.
Oh, okay.
So they give you like the floppy ears.
That's pretty cool.
And then you've got the ones that stand up, and I think this is part of the exclusive. I don't know if
that's the Rick version, right?
Yeah, the regular one, I don't know if it has the ears. And then this also comes with the statue.
Okay.
So if people have seen the movie.
Yeah, so because the movie takes place in Okinawa, so the Ryukyu Kingdom, all that symbolism down there, that's definitely a place I haven't been there yet, but I definitely want to check out in the future.
I would love to go to Okinawa.
Or maybe around February when it's nice and warm there, and it's up here in Aomori, it's chillingly cold.
Yeah, we get like a ton of snow up here usually.
Yeah. Maybe once Corona is over, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully it's over by then.
That's like, I know we both we moved from Trendmasters to Bandai and to the various new stuff. Like for me, I really latched on to, because I know in G-Fan, I saw mention of Hawaiian figures. I'm like, what are these? And I saw like the Sofubi figures, and I'm like, those are crazy looking. Like, why is there a pink Godzilla or something like that?
Yeah.
Like this really bright colors. But I think what really nailed, or where it really came home for me, like why I decided to start collecting that route, was because the X Plus stuff it's cool. I mean, I think with the Bandai stuff, it's like, oh, these are like look like the movie Monsters, and X Plus is like that on steroids. It's like the same thing with the SH Monster Arts. Yeah. And but I think with the SH, or with rather the X Plus figures, is they're so big, and I think what it is too is that when you do look at the monsters, they're a lot of shades of gray, green, brown, and
that's true. They're not very colorful usually.
That's the thing. It's like on a shelf. I mean, you can appreciate the movie accurateness, but I think at the time too, it's like they almost get lost in this. It's like a sea. You get lost in it. But for me, with the like for example, the old Marusan, Bullmark, then the newer companies like Marmot, then M1, just fantastic. Like for me, I'll move into the next topic too, like our top 5 favorite Godzillas and top 5 other monsters. Like for me, let's see right here. This is by M1, and I love the 54 Godzilla, and the latest one that they did is fantastic. It's the color is so appealing. And this came out in 2019. You have the stamps on the bottom there, but just a timeless design. And that's a pretty sizable figure, though. I mean,
yeah, it's pretty good.
Trying to see what else I got here. Also by M1. This came out in the classic box, but I had to put this on my list because these are in no particular order. Just these are in date order, but not ranking. And King Goji, so from 62. And I mean, you always got to go with the one you've seen first. I mean, that's no matter what movie you think is the best, the first one will always have an impression on you. And this is a Marmot figure. This is from the Godzilla Vinyl Wars collection. 84 Goji, the Cybot version. So, but this was a movie that I think a lot of people, it gets a bad rap, and perhaps rightfully so, the 85 translation. But when 84 officially came over in 2016, and I got to actually watch it, it was such a good movie. And the design,
the original Japanese one, yeah, it's really good.
And sticking with the Heisei, this is a Marmot Desugoji, so Burning Godzilla, and it's like an orange clear vinyl.
Yeah, it's kind of like translucent.
Yeah, this was exclusive through Toho Cinemas when the first anime film came out in 2017. So we'll talk about those,
Okay.
but
yeah, we'll get to that.
We'll have to rewatch those. And the last Godzilla, Sokugeki Goji. So from GMK, it's an awesome design. It's really menacing. This was I think out of all the Millennium films, that one is still my favorite.
Oh yeah, I would agree, definitely.
Now, on the topic of Godzilla suits, what are your top 5?
Yeah, so I had to make a list of them, but it probably changes all the time. So at the moment of this listing, all right, so the ones that I was thinking of at the moment was I liked the 75 Godzilla suit. That one's always really memorable to me, like the last Showa suit.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the term is for that one, because there's like Meguro Goji, and that's like the 73 one, and it's close to that suit, but it's not quite.
Because you're not sure like if they actually use it for all 3 movies or not.
I don't think I mean, for the 2 Mechagodzilla movies, it's the same design.
Yeah.
But the Megalon one, it's close to that design, but it's not fully there.
Yeah.
That was kind of the prototype. Yeah. And then after that was the 64 Mosugoji.
Oh, that's an awesome
That's
suit
kind of
too.
like, that's kind of used to be the standard Godzilla suit that they showed for practically everything. And then so number 3, I have the GMK suit.
Yeah.
So it's just something really cool about it, even if it does have kind of a
beer belly.
Yeah.
But
other than the belly, everything's pretty good.
I think just knowing the motion capture guy from Metal Gear Solid, who played Solid Snake, is inside that suit is so much cooler.
Yeah, that one's definitely one of my favorites. And then 2 and 1 probably alternate a lot, but number 2 I put the Heisei Godzilla, but that's kind of generic because there's several. So I'm thinking more of like maybe 92, 93.
Okay.
Like the Godzilla one. Where he's a little bit heftier, but
because they hit their stride around that period because 84 was a totally different suit.
Yeah, 84 is completely different.
Bio Goji and Gido Goji look fairly similar, I think, in terms of the head shape.
They're basically the same suit, and it's pretty much the same design as like 92, 93 and stuff, but it's much slimmer.
I think they kind of hit their stride. They just subtle refinements, and they look very similar going on from that point between Mechagodzilla and Destroyer.
Yeah, but it's basically the same suit. And then number 1 right now it's probably super mainstream, so people are gonna be like, "Oh man, you're not a real fan." But my number 1 right now is I really like the design from King of the Monsters, the most recent Godzilla, because I like the spine, like the Godzilla 2000 style spines.
Okay.
The jagged look. I thought they perfected it with King of the Monsters, and I like the 2014 design, but I hated the feet. He's got like
tree trunks.
Yeah, he looks like an elephant. So it was, and he looked like a weird bear in some scenes in the first one. I remember a lot of memes making him look like Winnie the Pooh. And I think they slimmed him down a bit. They fixed the spines, made it a little bit more like, I guess they made it less jagged in the 2019.
They look more like dorsal plates instead of like.
Yeah, it was almost like they combined the 2014 one with the 54 design. Like it was more like that.
I think the head shape looks a tiny bit different, but I agree with you 100% though. That for me is what, I mean, we'll definitely talk about 2019 in a future episode, especially as we talk about the Monsterverse going forward too. But for me, that I was really happy with how they didn't change it, they refined it. And
it's the same suit design more or less, but it's just like they used to do in the old Godzilla movies. Each time they would make the same, except they kept the design, they still changed it a tiny bit each time.
Definitely.
So I like that suit a lot. Well, cool. I mean, it's not a suit; it's a CGI, but I like the design a lot.
I guess the design language. I guess they use some modern words.
yeah, we have to use
lingo
terminology.
But I'm trying to think now. So we had the top 5 Godzillas. Now, what are your Godzilla universe monsters? 5 other ones that you really like.
Okay, so 5 also changes all the time, but the moment I put number 5, I put Anguirus.
Okay.
So, or Anguilas, if you're a classic dub fan.
Who is
or
it?
Anguirus, or whatever the heck they called him. They call him something different all the time. And number 4, I have Rodan or Radon, depending on the dub. And that was one that I liked that they included him in King of the Monsters, even if he was kind of a jerk in that movie. But that's what I liked about Rodan, because classic Rodan always kind of did his own thing.
He was menacing.
Like Mothra's pure good, and Godzilla kind of wavers between good and bad, and Rodan's just
chaotic.
He doesn't care. He'll help out, but he doesn't do it because he's nice. He just does it because it suits him.
He'll laugh when Godzilla gets injured in the groin.
Right, yeah. Why not? And then I like the new design I liked, and I like the Heisei design, but Showa is definitely the best one. Personality.
Definitely kind of like the GMK effect with GMK with the white eyes. The original Rodan had, was it black eyes?
Yeah.
So it's like this. There's like no expression. It's just menacing.
The original Rodan too, as a movie, is very menacing. Like it's like a horror movie, because it starts with people going into a cave and they're like getting devoured by giant insects, and then you find out the
Meganudon
food. Yeah. And it's set up much more like a horror film than a lot of the other like kaiju films. Okay, and then number 3, Destroya. Just I always like the design. He always looks like Destroya. He always looks like a giant demon or something. It was always really cool looking. The final form, and then before that, also the fact he has so many different forms. There's like that crab aggregate form, and then it moves up to the final one. And then Biollante, I was number 2. Same reason, really great design, very different, and something I'd like to see in like an updated movie. Yeah, because they don't have to change the design. Like, it's fine.
It does look timeless. The suit, or I guess the prop work for it, it still looks good. Because you look at some things and you're wondering, because especially after seeing Final Wars and how they brought some of the Showa monsters into the Millennium, it was so disappointing.
Yeah,
and I think
it's very strange, a lot of the designs.
So, but Biollante, I think, stands the test of time, and I think with minor tweaks, it could work really well.
Yeah, I would say that Biollante has the best special effects of probably the entire Godzilla series in terms of like suitmation and that sort of thing. Like it's just wasn't topped. And then it's like after Biollante, I feel like the Heisei series took like a huge hit in quality.
Yeah, it went from looking like a motion picture to, I mean, and I still love the series, don't get me wrong, but I think there was there was a Power Rangers or definitely a studio or TV movie feel to it. And like it was you could tell it was on a soundstage.
Yeah, and then Godzilla vs. Biollante, like the fight scenes are so brutal compared to the other ones. Like there's
when the tendril goes through his hand.
Yeah, that tendril goes through his hand and he has to like rip it out, and like all that like green whatever that's, I don't know if that's supposed to be his blood or if it's acid from the tendrils or something, but it was very more visceral. There's a bit of gore factor to it. And then after that, goes, like you said, it's like Power Rangers. Like most of the kaiju movies after that, there's like somebody gets hit and sparks fly everywhere instead of blood.
And they're dinosaurs.
Yeah, it's like, where are the sparks coming from?
I mean, Mecha Godzilla or Mecha King Ghidorah.
That makes sense. Yeah, but organic thing? No, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then my number 1 of all time is King Ghidorah, because King Ghidorah is like, the ultimate Godzilla villain. It's the Joker to Batman kind of thing, so Ghidorah, he's always been one of my favorites.
Now, out of all the Ghidorah iterations, which one is your favorite?
My favorite design is actually the one from Mothra 3.
Okay,
because I thought
that's
that was the
the
coolest
Grand King
looking
Ghidorah, right?
Ghidorah. Yeah, and I
Okay.
wish that I think is the biggest missed opportunity that never was in a Godzilla movie.
Yeah, that
because it's such a cool design.
Mm.
But the movie itself, it's got all kinds of problems. It's a Mothra movie.
Choto.
Yeah, exactly.
That's you can sum it up in that one word.
It's got some good ideas though. It's got some strangely dark ideas from a Mothra movie because he's powered by children's souls and stuff. Like it's really dark. But.
That's what was kind of frustrating about that series too. Which I mean, we'll probably analyze that.
I'm sure we'll be.
It's up and down because it's the child actors and just I guess the general plot points. I think going in and expecting Heisei Godzilla or even Heisei Gamera, you can't. I mean,
not from those Mothra ones now.
Because if you go in that expecting something very similar to that, you're going to be very disappointed.
No, I mean they were Mothra movies, so they immediately geared them way down to little kids. But there's some good ideas in there, but they're just not executed well.
I think probably the impetus for them to do that though was because I think in the Heisei series though, the Mothra versus Godzilla I think did the best or did a really big money because I know a lot of women went to go see it. So right, I think women and children. So that was more than enough reason for them to do those that trilogy of films.
Right. So yeah, that Ghidorah is my favorite design, but my favorite Ghidorah, like I guess storyline or whatever is I always like the original Ghidorah movie because he's just kind of this evil space dragon. I always hated it when he was controlled by aliens, which is pretty much every other incarnation of him, because I always wanted him to be this like destroyer of worlds, like space dragon type of thing, and then they just make him a puppet.
I think to kind of bounce off what you said there too, that's why the Ghidorah and King of the Monsters had a really cool appeal too, because
I really like that one. Yeah.
So not just the design, but I guess like the just his nature, rather too.
Yeah, the design's good too, but the nature of Ghidorah, taking him back to his roots as this like destroyer god or whatever, like that made it way more appealing to me.
I hear you there. Now, for me, my top 5, let's see, I got more vinyl goodies right here. So this is no particular order, but I got to go with my boy Baragon.
Okay,
I love this monster. I think when it came to watching the older movies, like I knew of Frankenstein. Well, Frankenstein Conquers the World because I was a big Frankenstein fan. But it wasn't until GMK when that suit. I mean, I wish we got what we originally planned for it, but at least we got Baragon. His name wasn't in the title, but at least we got him. And just a fantastic suit, fantastic performance, and that's what made me go back and rewatch movies with Baragon, and that's why I fell in love with that design. But another Showa monster. I mean, I'm not a fan of the Heisei version because it's so watered down. But Showa Mogera, it's just such a cool looking 50s robot, and I think seeing it was in color too was really cool. That was a really unique thing back in the 50s because Godzilla wouldn't be in color until 62. So it was kind of funny that like it seemed like almost like a side film or. Because we consider Godzilla to be the main bread and butter of Toho now.
Right, but then it was like Rodan and Mogera were the ones that got the color treatment.
Yeah, 56 and 57. Then doing kind of same movie, but Megalon. Just if there's any monster I'm absolutely crazy about in terms of collecting, it's Megalon. I mean, I made it a personal point to get every single colorway of this particular sculpt, the Bullmark sculpt. Unfortunately, my pockets are not deep enough to get the original bull marks. I mean, those are like a couple grand, like $3,000 to $4,000 easily. But it's nice that they have the reissues like this and such cool colors. So this particular one is the Godzilla Vinyl Wars version from 2015. But then Jet Jaguar.
Gotta have Jet Jaguar.
When I first saw this movie, I wasn't crazy about it, but it's over time I kind of just came to like it. because I didn't watch Ultraman either as a kid, but I kind of got into the series because I found like one of the complete sets at Kmart for like $7, and then I kind of got more into like the mech style kaiju.
Right.
But then the last one, Mecha Godzilla, and I have this is the Showa one, obviously, and I think this design it aged it's just so cool. It's of the era, and but I do have a soft spot in my heart for the Heisei version because of the Trendmasters toy, and I just love that particular movie.
Yeah.
I just wish they would have used the original design from
I was just gonna say like,
poster.
My favorite one's probably the poster design. Yeah. Yeah, it's just so different.
But yeah, those are my 5. I mean, like you said too, Bylante is such a cool design too, and that's what's so hard is like trying to pick. I mean,
oh yeah, like I said, mine changes all the time.
So but those are basically like our favorite monsters, and you kind of seen some of the collectibles we have. But now when it came to the original Bandai stuff, when did you have a cutoff? So, like when it ended for you?
Not really. Like I was still collecting them to a certain extent, like up until about a year or 2 before I came over here. So
okay.
I have a pretty sizable. I have most of them back home, not here.
Okay.
But
yeah. For me, when I first came over here, I had a lot of the standard releases, except for the few of the harder ones. Like it was Titanosaurus. I was lucky to get that one here with the tag.
Yeah,
but
I got that when it came out. Fortunately,
I had one in my hand, and at a comic shop when I was like 12, and for whatever reason, I was looking at it. And I was like, "Meh, I don't need it." And then it became like $100 figure, and now it's like, wow, I'm not getting that one. But I found it for like $30 here, and I was like, nice. I'll pay that. But I think because it was around 2007, like new sculpts really ended for Bandai.
Yeah, it was like Jet Jaguar, I think, was the end of the line.
Pretty much, because then it was just like the small 6-inch re-releases like Godzilla 2000, Kiryu, and stuff like that.
Re-releasing the same figures.
Over and over. But because the one thing that held an appeal for me was the movie theater exclusives or the store exclusives in Japan. And in the States, I mean, those are a specialty item, but here you trip over them.
Yeah.
So for me, I was in hog heaven like my first year here. Every single figure I saw, I was buying. And I was like, it's kind of a problem now. I'm like, I'm not gonna. I think when I first came here, I'm like, this is a reset. I'm not gonna collect any. I'm gonna be very simply. And that plan got shot down as soon as I picked up my first GMK vinyl, and that was just.
Yeah, it's a downward slope.
But so I know for us, like our interest was definitely carried forward. We said with the Showa early on, then the Heisei films. Now, what other Godzilla media were you into growing up?
A little bit into the video games.
Okay.
There wasn't a whole lot of variety around when we were kids, basically. But in the US, I had I didn't have an NES growing up because I just missed the cutoff for that, and I don't have any older siblings or anything, so I didn't get into that. I started with Super Nintendo.
Okay.
And I had Super Godzilla.
That was my first game too.
I got that at Toys R Us or something. And
you had to take the coupon, go to the counter, wait here, and then they bring it back.
But that's a weird game.
You have to it's like a rhythm game. It's weird. It's like you tap the shoulder buttons.
Strange. Yeah. Like you'd think they would just set it up as a fighting game or something, but it doesn't know what it wants to be. Like you're actually controlling dots at the bottom of the screen, moving around a map, and then it gets into battle mode, and battle mode is just like you said, it's almost like rhythm thing. You have to wait for the right card to show up before you can do an attack, and it's very odd.
But it's not any worse than Godzilla 2 War of the Monsters in NES, the slot machine game.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's an expensive game. It has cool box art, but it's not a good game.
Now, for some reason, Toho couldn't figure out how to do Godzilla, in games.
unfortunately.
They always had some strange gimmick going on. They couldn't just give you a regular game.
That's like with James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, was harping about. It's like the NES game was a side scroller, which was pretty standard for the time. I mean, you didn't see.
Yeah, that's the only normal game.
But I think what he said kind of holds true. It's frustrating because I mean, I know it's Godzilla. He's not going to sprint, but just you're on the moon, just like boom, boom, boom. There's a rock, and then Mothra really is not that useful.
Mothra like throws her wings or something. Like, what is her attack supposed to be? Just glitches out.
Like,
yeah.
But I'm trying to think. The one thing that was cool about that game, though, which I know he's playing his character in the Angry Video Game Nerd video, but all the other Showa monsters that show up too, like you had Gizora from Yog, Monster from Space. Then you had
very interesting variety.
Mogera. So I never got very far into the game, but seeing the designs, I was like, that was pretty cool, though. It's like that was some deep cuts. I mean, but I love that cop. Was the creepypasta Red?
Oh yeah, that's definitely something that takes me.
I'll say, even if the game is not that good, at least it gave us that, which is entertaining enough.
It's but like one of the best creepypastas out there.
Yeah, I was really engrossed. I was reading it like at 2:30 or 3 in the morning one night, and I was like, just kept reading. I was like,
yeah,
this is so weird. But I'm trying to think too. After that, I mean, I know in a Nintendo Power magazine they had Destroy All Monsters, the fighting game, slated to come out, but just it was not one issue. Then you never heard anything of it. Because
they did that a lot. Because I remember there was a video game that had. Was it Godzilla Generations or something? I think it was the one for the Dreamcast, maybe. And I remember that being in a magazine.
Okay.
And
that was a launch title.
Yeah, I almost got the Dreamcast because of that. And then, like, it never showed up. It was like, it was a Japan exclusive or something. And then it wasn't a great game anyway. But
what was funny, though, is you would think that when Godzilla 98 came out, there was a huge marketing campaign. I mean, you had the Trendmasters figures, which I think that line itself, the quality wasn't really there. But the Taco Bell stuff, I mean, it was everywhere that year.
Yeah,
but you didn't see a glut of games. I mean, it wasn't until the animated series came out you had the Game Boy game.
Yeah, I had
like
those. Yeah.
But I think what really kickstarted though was the 3D fighters by Pipeworks. And Atari.
Yeah, definitely.
So Destroy All Monsters Melee. So, because the reason why I got into this guy was because of that game.
Yeah, he's one of them.
Because you're like, Megalon, he was one of those goofy characters, but then you play as him, and you're like, why is he like beast mode? It's
yeah.
And I was trying to think too. At the same time, on Game Boy Advance, you had Godzilla Domination, which was basically like, Way Forward did it. And it was basically like their version of the arcade game King of the Monsters, which was so cool. And you could like throw buildings and monsters at other people. The one disappointing thing, though, they were planning on the final boss being Biollante because it was so big. But they said, scrap it, and they put Mecha King Ghidorah.
Mecha King Ghidorah. Yeah.
So, but still a cool game, though. It wasn't until a few years ago I was finally able to beat it because I was like paying attention to the patterns and stuff. But that's a cool game. It just pop in. You could play 5 minutes. You could play 2 hours, and it's just a blast. Yeah. But did you play the 2014 Godzilla game?
No.
The one that was on PS3 and PS4?
Yeah, I never played it. Like, I know about it, and I know about the memes about the reactor or whatever.
That seems to be the major complaint.
Yeah. It's very repetitive from what I heard.
Basically, the universal complaint, it wasn't Destroy All Monsters Melee, or it wasn't Save the Earth.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure what the legal situation is now with holding the rights to like the Pipework games and in terms of doing an HD remaster, even just throwing them up on like the on Steam or other networks. But I would just love to have that like an online just Godzilla like fighter. That would be so cool.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Just Toho, make it happen. Come on, we need it. Yeah, but I guess too, like I know we have a lot of other interests in Japan too, going beyond the kaiju stuff. Now, like what else in regards to Japanese culture are you interested?
Well, my first introduction to Japanese culture probably was Godzilla, but beyond that, I do remember seeing Seven Samurai as a kid, and so I got I got really interested in history and samurai and that sort of thing. And I also studied Aikido before I came over for about 10 years. So I like the martial arts. I like history, pretty much anything to do with traditional Japanese culture.
Very cool. Now, I'm a history guy too. I taught history back in the States. Now, with your Aikido background, now when you watch all the older films now, do you actually look and see if there's any techniques being used from those various disciplines?
Right. Yeah. No, I definitely do. Like that's something I always watch in any martial arts film or samurai film or something, especially if they try to do authentic techniques. Like you can always tell if they're using real martial arts or if they're doing like some kind of staged choreography type of things.
I think that's why Gargantuous holds up so well, because Nakajima, I think he was in one of the interviews, he said he did judo.
Judo seems to be yeah,
and then or karate. Then the other actor, I think he did wrestling or something of the sort, and they kind of just played off each other. Because I know Nakajima said that when he did Frankenstein versus Baragon, he said, was it Furuhata, I think was his name, that played Frankenstein, he didn't have a background, like a physical background like that. So it was, he had to really step him through, like step by step, how to choreograph it.
Yeah.
But some of those movies, like, I think with that kind of background, that makes those movies hold up a lot better too than some, even if they're a newer movie, if the choreography isn't there, you're not engrossed in it.
Yeah, that's why. And you can tell too if the people took the time and the effort to learn and to study martial arts and that sort of thing. Like one of my favorite movie series currently, not to get completely off topic, but I really, really enjoyed the John Wick movies. And one of the big reasons is because they put so much like time and effort into learning the techniques and doing everything. Like Keanu spent months and months and months training and getting all those techniques down. And and especially part 3, because there's so much Aikido in the third one that
I think like playing off of Keanu, what's interesting too is when they were doing the Matrix movies too, I know a lot of the cast, they trained for like 4 months. A lot. I know. Well, Keanu, he was actually recovering still from some kind of injury. He was partially paralyzed, so he only trained for like 2 months. But that's why you never see him from below the waist. You only see him throwing punches, really. But just like you said, though, those movies are just, the John Wick are phenomenal.
Yeah, John Wick's, I would say those are the best action movies that have come out in years. Like those are great.
And what was that other movie that came out? I'm not sure if it came out of Korea or China. It was the one where it was like housing complex, The Raid.
Oh, The Raid, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Indonesia, I think.
Okay,
that one is that's another one.
That was a standout film. I mean, shame on me, I can't 100% remember the name of it, but I saw part of it. But in regards to like being in Japan though too, I know as a teacher, I don't get a lot of time off, but when I do, I love to travel. And like I know for me personally, I've been to Hokkaido, in Sapporo City. I went to last year during Golden Week in May. I went to the Kansai region, so I got to see Kyoto, Kobe, Osaka, Nara. So a lot of those old temples down there, like Osaka Castle, just phenomenal. what was it, Todaiji, the largest Buddha. Then
Yeah.
it's just phenomenal. What places have you been in Japan that?
Since I've been here teaching, I haven't been to a whole lot of places. Pretty much just in the Aomori area in Tokyo.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that
before I
small
came,
window before Corona,
right?
unfortunately.
Yeah, you can't go anywhere right now. But the year before I came to teach, I came on a school trip,
Okay.
and that time we went to Saga, which is in
Ooh.
northern Kyushu.
Mm.
I went to Nagasaki.
Hatsune.
Yeah, yeah, it was in May, so yeah, it was pretty hot.
Mm.
And yeah, so I went to Nagasaki, and then we went to Kyoto, Nara, and then Tokyo. So
Okay.
I've been to those places.
Yeah, that region itself is really cool. I think during Golden Week for me, it was really packed. So there was a lot of people, and
Mm.
you have to really plan your stops because if you don't plan, that's one thing about Japan. If you don't plan ahead, you're sunk. But
Yeah.
the internet is a wonderful thing in regards to the amount of information, but curated information is what's really valuable and really
Mm.
because if you come to Japan without a plan, like when you went to Tokyo, for example, and you would put in restaurants, like how many would come up?
Thousands. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
and
no way you can
mm,
choose.
and the thing that's frustrating too is I think in the States we typically you figure out Sunday hours are shorter or things like that, but in Japan a lot of the time you'll go to Tokyo, and even in a big city like that where tourism is big, they'll say, oh, every second Thursday we're closed or something
Yeah.
odd like
It
that.
seems very random to Americans.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so that's why I always tell people, whenever you plan on going somewhere, have an itinerary.
Mm.
It's so helpful. But I think, especially, I think even if you've been to Japan a number of times, you've probably been to Tokyo, you've been to the cities, and I know for me, at least with going to Tokyo, if you've been there a couple of days, it's almost like you've seen everything.
Yeah.
So I think, like at this point in the game, you're looking for more curated, really uh, specialized experiences.
Unique cultural
Mm,
experiences, and every part of Japan is completely different from every other part. So
exactly.
yeah.
But and I think too, depending on which season you come into, because there are 4 unique seasons here, as everyone here will tell you.
In case
And
you didn't know, there are 4 seasons in Japan.
so people here were very shocked when I said that same in New Jersey. But
we also have 4 seasons.
but it really is fantastic though. It really is like a total shift. Like if you go, everyone talks about coming during Sakura season, but no one talks about during like the fall with the momiji trees, like the maple, and like
Yeah.
the different fall colors are fantastic. And you won't have that the heat won't be like suffocating you. And I think too that just the tourist foot traffic is down too. So don't count out like coming during other seasons as well.
Right. Definitely.
So in regards to you though, Sean, like what are some destinations you have? Like if you could pick a place now in Japan you'd like to visit.
Um, we talked about Okinawa
Mm,
earlier. I feel
same.
like that's a good one because it's so different. I mean, Okinawa, getting into our history background, Okinawa wasn't even
Mm,
part of Japan until like 140 years ago. So it's
mm.
it's completely different culture. And I also would like to go to Hokkaido, which I
Hokkaido,
feel is
I
more doable.
I so recommend that because that kind of is on a similar note. It's just the is you have the unique Ainu culture there, and I think
Yeah,
what about it too
that's
is that
another thing to check out.
like I went to the Sapporo factory and I did the tour there, and just the level of uh, what's the word? The globalization that you saw there, like Japanese people going to Europe to study crafting beer, and just
Mhm.
you had foreigners actually coming to Japan back in the late 1800s to teach farming methods and other things, industrialization, and it
Yeah.
was really phenomenal. And the one museum I went to was it's the large clock tower in Sapporo City. It has a nice
Mhm.
museum there, and
Yeah.
it was just a fantastic city. The food in Sapporo is wonderful. Whether it's the ramen or soup curry, that's one of their famous foods there too. And
Mhm.
it's out of this world. I think out of all the regions I've been to, Sapporo or Hokkaido rather just knocks it out of the park.
Right. Yeah, I definitely want to go there. And like you said, the Ainu culture is always something that fascinated me because my own background is I'm primarily Scottish Gaelic, and so I've always been fascinated by like indigenous, like Aboriginal cultures and things that are like on the fringe of being borderline extinct because of colonialism. And so I've always had kind of a fascination with those kind of cultures. So like the Ainu, different the Ryukyuan cultures in Okinawa, kind of the same deal. And then outside Japan, obviously, I'm interested in like Native American, Maori, like that sort of thing. But back to inside Japan, another period of history that I really like is the Wakamatsu Edo period. So 19th century, turn of like the fall of the samurai, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the Meiji Restoration of Japan,
right,
from 1868.
Yeah, so I definitely want to go to Hakodate, which is like the first place you go when you go to Hokkaido.
And I've been here 3 years and still haven't been.
Yeah, that's a place I'd like to go, and also Aizu, because that's another one that's also close by, because that's in Fukushima Prefecture.
Very cool.
So yeah, those are my places.
Yeah, Fukushima is actually where M1 is based out of, so they're relatively close to us. So
that's interesting. Yeah.
And I definitely would love to get down to. Thing it's just so tough with the school schedule though, for Wonderfest or Superfest.
Right.
But I think it's so funny is even though I've seen people on the Godzilla Collectors Group page, they said, I'm there, I'm waiting, I'm in the room, but the figures are gone. It's like that South Park meme. It's like, oh, there are the figures, and they're gone.
And they're gone. It's like immediately.
Meanwhile, you're in the room. It's like they're already on Yahoo Japan. It's Yahoo Oku.
It's a scalper convention.
It's basically like their Comic-Con, because I know there's Tokyo Comic-Con, which I haven't been to. But
yeah,
that's in the summer though, I think.
Yeah, that's something I would like to do at some point. So. And they do get some pretty big name international celebrities go to that, because I know Chris Hemsworth was at it.
Okay.
I think last year, so they get some big names.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm trying to think too. Whenever Kong vs. Godzilla does come out, or whenever we get a trailer.
Yeah, we haven't got a trailer. It's been delayed 3 or 4 times at this point.
But the sad part is, I don't know if there's ever going to be an opportune time. He's just like, there's a Marvel movie just waiting in the wings, and it's like, but
yeah, there's about 4 coming out next year, I think.
But definitely excited for that though too. We'll definitely have to discuss those, and
yeah, we'll get into the MonsterVerse and everything else.
And speaking of, we'd love to hear what fans or listeners think too of kaiju films, Japanese culture, and we have some social media information you can hit us up at. Now, this podcast is going to be hosted at Podbean, and that's Doki Doki Daikaiju Podcast, and it'll also be posted on my YouTube page. That's Earthbounder89. So you can check that out. That'll be the video podcast. But in regards to if you want to ask us a question or make a recommendation, or from time to time we may even do a poll question just to see listener interest. The Twitter that we have is at Doki Podcast. And then the Instagram we have, let me pull it up really quick, is, I want to make sure I have it right. It's just Doki Doki Daikaiju Podcast. So, and the reason why we went with that title is I know from our age group when it came to old video games, Doki Doki is in a lot of them. I know Super Mario Brothers 2 was Doki Doki Panic, but in Japanese you have a lot of automatopoeias with words that will describe like things like shinies like kira kira. Then Doki Doki is the sound of a heartbeat in Japan. It's like Doki Doki Doki, like when you're nervous or you're excited. Right. So for us, just the alliteration of Doki Doki Daikaiju. So was kind of a cool feel. and we hope that this podcast is enjoyable and exciting for our listeners. So
yeah, hopefully.
Just the math added up. So there you have it. But before we get going, though, Sean, do you have any other words you'd like to add or things you'd like to mention?
Not at the moment. So this is just our first episode. So stay tuned for more.
Definitely. So, but like we've mentioned in this episode too, we'll probably get into various topics that people want to hear about, like our thoughts on the American Godzilla films that came out, the MonsterVerse going forward, and just other topics, maybe in regards to Japanese culture, the music that was in the films, or other films entirely.
Basically anything you want to talk about, yeah.
Like getting in, like you mentioned, the Edo period, and I just watched the Daimajin trilogy, and I got a lot to say about that. That was such a really, really good.
Those are very good.
Yeah. I enjoyed them immensely, and it's funny to think that Gamera is the face of Dai when Daimajin is so good, and we haven't seen anything other than that TV show that was loosely tied to it, but there was no new movies.
Right.
But
yeah, it's definitely a shame.
But never know what the future holds. But
that's true.
So as of now, we don't have a particular schedule. We maybe every 2 or so weeks, depending on how our teaching schedules mesh. We'd like to put out an episode both on Podbean and YouTube. We'll upload those. But we'll try to interact with listeners as much as possible on Twitter. So we'll gauge their interest too. But I'm Brian Sudol.
I'm Sean Emmerich.
And you've been listening to Doki Daikaiju podcast, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Thanks for listening.